Hi everyone. Let's start our investigation into the structural system of a home at the bottom, and we'll look at foundations first. The purpose of a foundation is to carry the weight of the home and to anchor it to the ground. So the function of a foundation is to transmit the load down to the supporting soil. Your foundation will support the building and its contents. And we can categorize those in two ways. Live load is any variable weight within the building. This can be people, furniture, equipment. It can also be snow. And dead load is permanent weight. This is going to be the floors, walls, roof of the building. The soil will support the foundation up to its bearing capacity. That's how much weight that soil will bear. And here we have a pretty famous example of a soil which has gone past its bearing capacity with the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Here are four common types of foundations for residential buildings and for small buildings. And we're going to start here with the basement. All right, so we're looking at a section of the home. You can see here is the living space, and we're cutting through the soil. Here is the foundation wall and the footing, and we have a full basement below. Next, take a look at the crawl space. Very similar, except you don't have that full area below in order to stand in this space. Our third foundation type is slab on grade. All right, take a look right here. We've got the foundation and the floor are the same element. And our last one is called a pier or an open foundation. Right. This works really well for slopes and also for areas that are prone to flooding. And so you see I've placed this line right here that shows how that would work on a sloping grade rather than here is with a flat grade. Let's look more closely at that basement foundation type. Basements are popular because they add living space or storage space to your home. And they're more common in cold climates than here in the San Francisco Bay Area because in cold climates you need to extend your foundation past the frost line, right, which is the area of the soil which will freeze during the winter. And if you're going to do all that work anyway and make those deep foundations, you might as well add the usable space. An important point of basement foundations is that they require waterproofing in order to create that livable space inside. Here we've got two diagrams of the same system. Right? Starting on the left, let's talk about the structural system of this foundation type. So we've got the house above here, and all of the weight of that house is coming down to rest on this foundation wall. All right, that load comes down and rests on this spread footing, right, which in turn rests on the soil. On the right, we see that that basement needs drainage and waterproofing. Right? So I've added a little bit of rain coming in here. We've got some water raining onto our building and kind of dripping down. It's going to hit our foundation system. And first of all, we're going to slope the ground away so that that water will run off, any surface water. And then any water that comes into this soil here, we're going to have wet soil, is going to, based on capillary pressure, push into your foundation. And you don't want that. You want to keep it outside. And so we will have a waterproofing system along this outer edge. And that's going to drain the water down, and finally into, this is going to be area of gravel down in here with a perforated drainage pipe that'll take that water away from your foundation. Now let's look at the individual components of this basement foundation system. And I want you to spend some time with this document, which is in your Canvas course. All right, and get to know all of these pieces, but I'll give you an overview here. I've kind of color-coded some of the more important pieces. So starting at the top, this is our house up here, and here's the exterior wall of the house. So looking over here, this is the outside, and this is the inside of the house. All right. Your wall is built up here. Here's the wall stud of that exterior wall system with the plywood subfloor. This is where someone would stand. Right. Here is the floor platform, which we'll be studying more next week, right? With an edge joist or rim joist. Got a couple of different names over here. And this is going to be the floor joist. It's going perpendicular to our frame of view in this picture. Okay. Now we really get to the foundation piece of it, starting with this sill plate. Right? And the sill plate is a piece of pressure treated wood so that it doesn't get damaged by the moisture that is in this concrete. All right, so we have a pressure treated piece of wood here. And below that, we've got our concrete foundation wall. All right? And this one's shown as concrete, but the other really common material is concrete block or CMU. And as we go down to the basement floor here, that is a concrete slab. And at the bottom of all of this is our concrete footing. Right? Notice that it's wider than your foundation wall because it's bearing directly on the soil below. We want a nice wide pad for that. Here's a couple more important points. First of all of this interior space, both inside the house and inside the basement here, is all conditioned interior space. Right? This is livable space. Right? We'll see a difference when we look at the crawl space. And second, take a look at this dimension right here. It's from the soil outside to your first piece of unprotected wood. Right? And in California Residential Code and International Residential Code, that is a minimum of 6 inches above finished grade, or it's 4 inches if you're using masonry veneer, right? But it's recommended that it be 8 inches, all right? So wider is better. And that's for protection against water and insects. Now let's move to our second type of foundation, and that's a crawl space. A crawl space is really common in our location in the San Francisco Bay Area of California. Right? It's very useful and flexible to have that space under your home to run the pipes, run the wires, and be able to access all of those utilities. But we have no inhabitable space down there. Here's 2 different ways to build a crawl space. And on the left, we have a flush crawl space. What that means is that the inside here under your home is at the same level as the outside or the existing grade. All right, flush crawl space. The second one is called a submerged crawl space. And in this case, we've excavated some of the soil. All right, and so the crawl space area is actually lower than the existing grade. This is more common in our area, the submerged crawl space, and you can see why it's popular because it's much closer to the existing grade, so you can have just a couple of steps up into the home. All right, this one's going to have much more steps, many more, excuse me, but it is slightly easier to build. Let's take a look at that crawl space foundation detail, and again, I've color-coded it for you. So starting up at the top, here's our exterior wall. We've got the interior space over here, exterior over here. All right, so we've got our wall stud right here. Here's our plywood subfloor. We've got the edge joist or rim joist right here, and the floor joist right here. Okay. Just like with the basement wall, we've got our pressure treated sill plates, which is going to take the weight from that house above, from those floor joists, and distribute it along the foundation wall. Now this entire thing is the concrete foundation wall, but hey, why is this piece different? That's because at the specific area or specific spot where we took this section, right where we cut through this building, there's an opening in the concrete, and that is a crawl space vent. It's for airflow between the crawl space area and the exterior. Right? And in other places along the wall, the concrete is continuous. And finally, at the bottom here, we've got our concrete footing. Here's a couple more notes on this crawl space foundation detail. First of all, notice we've got this area up here. It's conditioned interior space. All right, this is where people live. Underneath, we now have unconditioned space. So this is open to the exterior, right? It's not interior livable space at all. And notice that we have added insulation right here so that we don't have heat flowing from inside to outside. The second note here is this distance. We've got a distance from the bottom of the floor joists to the soil here. And typically we want 24 inches clear under the floor joists, although it can get as small as 18 inches clear under some of the larger items like girders and beams. And that's for access. That's how much room somebody takes to crawl under that crawl space, literally. Now let's look at this section down here. All right. This detail is showing the flush crawl space. Take a look, it's got this interior grade at the same level as exterior grade right here. But if you wanted to do the submerged crawl space, you could have soil all the way up to here, all right? And that's why I've added this green color area right here. And this dimension right here to the bottom of the siding, all right, needs to be at least 6 inches above finished grade, and it's recommended that it be 8 inches, just like the basement. Thanks everyone. You've just learned what foundations are, how they work, and we took a look at our first two common types of foundations, the basement and crawl space. We'll continue this discussion in the next video.